I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, degenerate sleuths of the night. We gather to boldly go where others have refused. Welcome to the DT show, you salty mofos.
A man accused of killing 4 college students is behind bars, and he has ties to northeastern and central Pennsylvania. State police say 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger was arrested this morning at a home in Chestnut Hill Township.
I can't find any case law that would support that idea. That somehow a warrant would be needed for DNA left at a crime scene.
We are expecting to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
So, the Commonwealth just provided the court with information that causes me grave concern. The implications of that information may have profound effects on this defense and defense counsel.
So, get your popcorn ready and your choice of drink. Get your butt on your seat. Like, comment, and subscribe for a treat. Here we go. It's time for the show. The Drunk Turkey Show.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT show. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I hope everybody made it safe through the crazy weather that went through. It was cold for me throughout the weekend, and now it's getting pretty warm, getting back to normal. I hope everybody had a fantastic, safe week. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. We got a great show for you guys today. I think that if there was ever a collaboration that was going to make the Pro Burgers squirm, it's going to be this one. Welcome to our channel, Gray Hughes from Gray Hughes Investigates. What's going on, my man?
Hey, yeah, just chilling out. A lot of breaking news in different cases. You know, some of the, like I covered the Delphi case too, and there's the interviews from the interrogations just got put out, so that's been a pretty big deal. But the Kohberger, with all the new releases of documents, has really became even way more interesting because you've been able to, you know, put pieces of the larger puzzle together even stronger than it was before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think this is a very strong case. I like the fact, you know, I wasn't 100% for it being moved out of Latah County in the beginning, but that mindset changed quickly once I saw Judge Hippler get to work. A lot of things have happened since then. A lot of transparency has happened since he's taken over. And I think it's for the best. You know, I think that there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of people saying, well, we don't know this or we don't know that, whether it came from the K-bar knife or purchase or whatever the case may be. It's all out there now. And I couldn't be more pleased. What was your initial thought when they moved the case from Moscow to Boise? Were you okay with it? Did you want it to happen, or were you against it?
Well, I wasn't sure. I was thinking I don't like Judge. He just seems so wimpy and not strong at all. And I think Ann Taylor's absolutely slapping herself in the face that she wanted that move, because I think they would have had a much better chance with Judge. You know, this other guy, this new guy, you know, you see him going like this, you know, like shaking his head when Ann Taylor's talking, right? I mean,
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. It was a good move. I think it's a move. I think there's been several moves that Bryan Kohberger's defense team have made that probably are looking back at themselves and kicking themselves in the rear, thinking maybe they shouldn't have done it. One being the speedy trial, etc. But the reason I brought you on the show today is I've been looking at a few of your work and some of the animations that you've done, and one of the ones that I've seen here recently was the driving around one where you've mapped and you put Bryan Kohberger's little white Elantra on a map and just kind of showed exactly all his movements that night. When you were putting them in there, is there anything that kind of just jumped off the page right away as far as his movements that night?
Well, I think the new information about Ridge Road, that it was interesting because years ago, or not year, well, I guess it could be years ago, about right when the probable cause came out, I created a loop that I kind of just figured out that the car took. It wasn't worded in there, and then it was interesting to see that the Ridge Road was right on that loop, and then that's the camera that showed that it was missing a front license plate. But I think the thing that just sort of stands out are all the different times where there's this 3 or 4 times, I think on loop 3, the car's going north on Volanta Drive, but then it doesn't go into the neighborhood. I call it the right where King Road is. It doesn't drive on King Road because you can't come in or out unless you go on King Road. You just go back and around and you're out. So he doesn't go on there, but then they don't have the car driving by the Linda Lane camera, which is just down the road on Taylor Avenue. So the car should have driven by there. However, have you seen the Linda Lane footage on YouTube? It's 5 hours long.
Yes,
and
I have.
And it just happens to be missing 3:30 to 4:05. I mean, how incredible is that? I mean, I don't know, man. But law enforcement isn't referencing that camera other than that one time that it drove by there on the way in, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So it's pretty interesting. So when it drives by there at about 4 o'clock, after likely passing the Uber driver, the Uber Eats or whatever the hell it was,
right?
DoorDash, that's what it was. DoorDash driver drove by. You'd think it would have shown up on that camera because it goes on Ridge Road, and that's where they get the shot of the missing front license plate. So I wonder if that's how the defense is trying to, well, how come it didn't show up on that camera? But why is that missing, that 35 minutes of crucial time?
That's an interesting question. That should not be missing. Hopefully, I would hope that it would be something that would show up, but I don't think it would be the law enforcement be the reasons why it'd be missing. A lot of the Linda Lane footage got released and leaked and shown. Do you think maybe perhaps in the download of that footage so that they can release this footage to? I heard, I don't know how true it is, but I heard some of that Linda Lane footage was sold. Whether that is true or not, I don't know. But in the process of making those videos, is it possible that they destroyed that? If so, I mean, I wonder if they can face something or if somebody could be in trouble for doing something like that. I'm not saying that's the case, but that is interesting that it is missing.
Well, I sort of hope it's just the person who got it removed it for some reason, because law enforcement, if they actually had it, they would have referenced it a couple more times in the way that the Elantra is moving around, at least one more for sure. But there's 3 times where I have the Elantra coming on Volanta Drive and then stopping on Taylor Avenue and just waiting there, parked. And then it does a U-turn and goes back because it doesn't show up on any of the other cameras that it would have had it kept going. So, some of the stuff is, you kind of have to just interpret what it says, but it's just amazing how he was just staying back behind, moving around in the neighborhood, killing time. Probably knew that he was so antsy and worked up that he had to sort of drive away to kill time before making a rash move, something like that.
Yeah. Just curious, do you think that it's possible that maybe perhaps there was another house he was looking at in that area? Because when I was looking at that, I noticed that he was driving behind. Now, obviously, he could be driving there to look at the house, but he was driving behind, I think it was like 1119 King Road, which is right there where Jack DeCour's house was. And there were several times that he drove up and down back there. In fact, more times than he actually drove into the King Road area. And I was just kind of wondering, maybe he had more than one house in his mind. Do you think there's a possibility of that, or do you think everything he did, from what you see, circles around that house?
That's what I feel. I think he was just. I mean, there's anything's possible, but like I think he was basically a shark circling the waters and always looping around 4 different times. I mean, I guess it's possible there were other houses of opportunity that he was looking at on the different driving around, but it seems like everything always just kept leading back, and everywhere he went, a lot of the times he could, when he's driving behind 1119 King Road, he can look down and see the house. You can actually see it that time of year because there's no foliage on the trees.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so is there anything, so I know that those that support Bryan Kohberger, they look at a gas station that captured some footage at 3:45 a.m. However, in the documents that they put down, there's for one, that camera isn't mentioned in any documents, and 2, it appears that they have at least the vehicle in sight somewhere at 3:45 a.m.
Right. Exactly.
Now, does that tell you that maybe perhaps there's 2 vehicles out there, or do you think maybe perhaps that camera is just off? I noticed that when I did see the document, when it was listing out the cameras that they were using, the Sunmart in both locations, the one in Pullman and the one in Moscow, just so happened the 2 gas stations that were mentioned, their surveillance camera time was off, whether it be by a couple of minutes or 2 minutes, they were off. I'm not saying that that's the case there, but I just find it odd that all the other gas stations cameras were off. Maybe perhaps that 3:45 isn't so accurate. I mean, it's only a block away or so. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It is interesting. It says 3:45. I've talked to, one of the family members mentioned that they think that that's the Elantra. But then we've, after discussing after the new information's come out, it looks like that's not it. But like you're saying, if the time is off, perhaps it was there even prior to 3:26 when it was seen on Indian Hills Drive. Maybe because it's kind of in the same general area. I mean, I have a map. I don't know if you are able to switch over where I could just show, because I can just switch me to a bigger, like I'll show you, watch. Like if I go like this, and then you make me bigger, then people can see it.
Let's see. And then
there you go. Yeah, that worked. Yeah, so I think on the 3rd loop-ish, it's driving around like this, and then we thought it came over here because the gas station is just right there. That's the gas station that films the Elantra driving just like that on the road right there. Okay, but look at where that is compared to Indian Hills Drive, which is, I think it's just right down. It's hard to have all my drawings on here, but it's like right up in, let's see, hold on. It's funny, it's not popping up. Let me turn on all my crap. Here we go, watch. Boom. Now there's so much stuff on the screen you can't even see it. Yeah, right here. So, that gas station is right there. So what if after that he drove down and kind of looped around and then went on Indian Hills Drive and was filmed right there? Maybe it was before. Maybe it was at like 3:24 instead of 3:44, something like that, right? It's possible.
Yeah.
Don't know. I mean, I can switch back if you want. But I have all these different things. I have like a 360-degree video if you want to take a look at while we're on the, we can go on Willanta Drive and then be right behind 1119 if you want to.
Yeah. Let's bring that up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got it right here. Just a second. I'll just switch screens again. I've got 2 different 3D things. Like I have a 3D model of the inside of the house, but then there's this. Yeah, so here is the 360-degree video. I'll make it full screen. on my end.
Where do you think he parked?
I think he parked just lately. I think when he pulled around, he waited about right here to look into that window because that's Madison Mogen's room right there.
Yeah.
But I think he maybe it's the last time though he pulls up and parks further down, almost in front of this vehicle. And then in that way, he just doesn't have to go down a steep hill at all. He just walks down that small little hill, then walks around and then goes inside the kitchen sliding glass door over there.
Yeah.
Let me just move it to, I'll go all around the corner. We're just past the Sigma Chi. And see, right now we're behind 1119 King Road, right there. And I think right back there is 1122.
Oh, you can't see it.
Yeah, it's very, very clear from up here. So you keep moving around. Of course, I'm walking right next to it, but I mean, look at that. Right? So this is like I think this one right here is the 1125, and that's 1119 right there. And as the car came around in the parking lot up there, it shined a light on this building right here, this house.
You know, there was a video clip, and I got to go back and find it, but it was the news media that's out there. Now, I know the PCA says he never went back out there according to his phone. Now, that doesn't mean that he never went back out there with his phone off. Given his habit of driving down that road, it appears that if, his intention from this road here is so that he can see the house, I wouldn't be surprised if that it was, in fact, his long trip passing by, revisiting the scene.
Yeah. That has been sort of something to think about lately. That one reporter that had the car driving behind there. Yeah, that's insane. I didn't realize how much you could see, because I tried looking at it from Google Earth, and I was like, man, there's a lot of trees. I know it was in wintertime, but maybe how much can you see? And this is pretty telling. Yeah, look at that. I mean, you can see really clearly. And I think so when the DoorDash driver was there, it makes a big difference if it really was 3:59 or it was when there's this key fob sound at 3:59 and 47 seconds where it goes beep, beep, beep. And then about 40 seconds later, it beeps again, and then the car drives away. So that seems like that would be the DoorDash, right? So it'd be interesting to know if the DoorDash time is actually do they just use the last full minute and remove the seconds at the end? Like it would be 4 o'clock or 4:01 or 4:02, but never the seconds. So
right,
because that would make a difference.
Do you find it odd that that on the Linda Lane footage, can you hear the dog barking at 4:17 and continually bark to about 4:30?
I've never really been able to hear just like an obvious bark, Yeah. I guess I just haven't heard anything that was, I don't think I've heard that actually. I've listened to it a million times. I think people hear what somebody tells them to hear, kind of like spirit box, They go, hey, look, hey, there's a sound. And you go, oh yeah, I hear it, Like that.
Yeah, that's funny. The spirit box.
I don't know if you want to switch back. We can flip back and forth to different things if you want.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's definitely telling to see it from that area. And I know you've been in that area before. For somebody, I'm assuming you hadn't been to Moscow, Idaho prior to the murders. And for somebody that being there new, was it easy to find? What would your thoughts have been for that being the location of somebody to choose?
Well, I'll tell you what was, I think it's interesting. I think he actually chose them before maybe even went to Moscow. He may have even, while he was there, but looked her up. I think Madison Mogen is probably the target that he had. I think she looks like, like the classic, just sorority Barbie doll, really pretty, like he probably obsessed over that. And I think everyone else happens to be collateral damage. And, when I went there, I'll tell you what that was really telling to me was when I was driving on Wilanta Drive back there and trying to do the loop that I drew out. I got lost the first 3 or 4 times. I was like, God, where the hell is it? And then eventually throughout the night, I could just do it simply. Just boom, 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 all the way around Ridge Road, Taylor Avenue, back around. I was going the other direction. Yeah. But so that proves to me that he had to have gone out there and scouted it out to be able to keep doing the loops during that whole time. He never veered off into the wrong place.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, the defense has kind of thrown out that seed when they said that he used to go for a lot of runs, but now that it's turned into drives. And so I think we're going to hear that he was driving that area quite a bit, and they're going to try to say that that was some sort of habit. I think it was more, learning than it was a habit.
What's amazing though is when during that habit that he had, the car pulls over at 4:08, right by the house, and then it drives away at 4:21, basically. Yeah. Isn't that amazing that during that time the car was parked on his just random drive, that 4 individuals were killed in the house that it was parked right at, and a knife sheath was left in there with his DNA on it, one that he had purchased back in March of the same year. Yeah, pretty weird. I mean, I know it's just coincidental, but
it brings up an interesting thing. He says that, and this was in the documents, that 23 times within 100 meters between, I think it was some early July and November 7th. I wonder how many times between November 7th and the November 13th that he was actually in that area. But 23 times now, we now know that.
I saw that recently. Can you tell? I mean, I saw the reference to it, but when they say within 100 yards, even
100 meters,
100 meters. Well, yeah, so that's close.
Yeah, very close. It states there that it's on one of the documents where Bryan Kohberger's defense team is challenging the locations and the pings and the vehicle, or all of it actually. But on one of them, they reference Nick Balance, and they're talking about page 28 and page 29. And on page 28, they have the map, and the map is of the victim's home, and there's a CS for crime scene right over the victim's home, and there's a 100-meter radius. And then on page 29, it references that they have Bryan Kohberger's phone at the crime scene 23 times.
Is that in the new document that talk about his vehicle?
It is in the vague. I want to say it's in the one that says vague something. Let me look.
The word vague is in the name of the.
Yeah. It was the vague expert or something of that nature. There, it was the defense's witness. Let's see. It's a defense's document.
They're saying Kohberger was there, so they're going to try to sell that he goes there all the time, instead of just saying he's stalking that. That's going to be such an easy way to reverse it.
Yeah,
that's a stupid thing to admit to, in my opinion.
Well, I don't think they're admitting to it. They're pointing out that there's no methodology to show that he has him there. So that's their whole argument, is that there's not a methodology, but they bring up these 2 points in what Nick Balance is going to say. And it kind of just leads to the defense's, I guess, rebuttal. But to me, I mean, Nick Balance has been doing this for a while. He's testified in cases, death penalty cases in Idaho before. I think it's a stretch.
Is that the Cyray article one, the document?
It
one
is,
of his?
No, it was. Gosh, where was?
I guess I don't remember that one. I gotta have to.
I'm gonna have to pull that up. No, it was. I think it was like 16 pages. And then after the fact, it said like a couple of different things, and it said Nick Balance on there. Oh, gosh. So it's not that one. That one's vague, undisclosed testimony. I want to say it was one of those with the word vague on there.
Be cool if you could just search and it looks in the documents too.
Yeah.
I always wish you could do that. Somehow, maybe AI will have that in the future. But
yeah. And hold on, let's see. Yeah, one day they will. One day they will. I gotta go find it. I'm sure one of these folks in the live chat will tell me exactly which one it is. Yeah, he was they were referencing his testimony and what he's going to say, and they were obviously upset about that. But at the end of the day, there's just so much against him. I find it well,
it's amazing, but like the Kohberger people, they always take each element and argue that element and then say, see, but it's like, no, you got to put the avalanche of circumstantial evidence that you stack together that tells the story. And here's the thing: is I haven't seen one thing yet that makes me go, that's interesting. Maybe it isn't. I mean, that's never even crossed my mind. There hasn't been one shred. Has there been anything like that with you? Something that's real that popped up that you go, wow, that's interesting. I wonder, now I'm starting to wonder.
Absolutely not, man. I mean, the only question that I ever had was early on. So early on, when they first arrested him, I read the PCA and I thought, the first thing that I thought was, okay, so this is a document that was written over time, and they probably shouldn't have done that. And I thought that they had some things in there that they shouldn't have had. Like, for instance, they talk about how there's a road that directly puts that you can travel from Pullman to Moscow, and that they believe that that's a possible route that he could have gone. However, in the same document, they show that he was near Genesee and Unionton and a bunch of other places. And so I didn't understand why they even had that first part to begin with. I understand if they would have thought of that at some point, okay, but go back and take it out. So there was a copy and paste component to it that I didn't like, and I thought it was a little bit confusing. The one
you talking about that drawing? You're talking about the drawing where it looks like it goes across?
Right. Well, I'm talking about where Detective Payne says in his report, he says that the Elantra exits on like Palouse River Drive, and that Palouse River Drive goes all the way to Pullman, that you can take a direct trip that direction.
Oh, right.
And I'm just like, why even put that on there? You're alluding that that's the route that he may have taken, and yet a couple of pages later, you're saying that his phone turns on and he's 10 miles south. Yeah. So which one is it? And
I remember that too. There's a lot of errors in that.
Yeah, exactly.
A very actually, I wouldn't say tons, but like I think like at least 5 or 6 sort of like that's not okay. That's not it. That's not right.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so that I was like, all right, the DNA is the one that I had the question about, and I had Howard Bloom on. I've had him on the channel. He's actually going to come back on next week, guys. So I'm like and subscribe for that. But he wrote an airmail article, and he was talking about the fact that the amount of DNA that was found on the knife sheath was so small. It was a speck. It was barely anything. In fact, the Idaho State Lab didn't find it. They had to send it off to Othram, and they found it. And that was inaccurate. What reality was that Idaho State Lab found it, and they entered into CODIS, and that's where they got the nothing burger. It was in CODIS, not that they couldn't find the DNA.
So we go over on my channel, we've gone over the DNA like a million times, because we have an expert that comes on named Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick she's like the founder of genetic genealogy, and we actually donate. I think we've given her almost $100,000 for identifying Jane and John Does and so forth. Oh, okay. But yeah, the whole it's absolutely explained. It totally makes sense. But if people don't understand it, then it doesn't make sense. But I've tried my best to have many shows and her on where it's just easily explained how this whole DNA thing worked. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just, you know it probably now after discussing it.
Yeah. And to me, I thought that it would have been a problem if it was a speck. As far as the state going out there. Now, I always thought the fact that him having his phone off was a big hint. I was like, man, this guy obviously did it. But I was sitting around the 65% range. And then once the DNA came back off of the swab off his cheek, that it was like 1 in 8 octillion chances it could have been somebody else, then I was like, well, then no, that's it. It's him. His phone was off. They got pictures of his vehicle. DNA on the knife sheath, and now we find out that they even have the purchase of the knife and the knife sheath and the sharpener,
the balaclava. I mean, amazing.
His entire kill kit is basically there, and so here it is. I found it. I knew it was somewhere in one of the documents that I had, and it is in the. This is the reply to the state's response to the defendant's motion in limine, a vague and undisclosed expert testimony. And way down here under balance, it says here, the state has not disclosed any analysis where Special Agent Balance will claim the phone was located. These are 7 critical minutes that contain exculpatory evidence. We'll talk about the 7 minutes in a second, but this says here, page 28 shows a map that includes the 1122 King Road, Residents represented by CS icon and a yellow circle that represents a 100-meter radius around the crime scene. Balance will explain that he conducted an analysis of all the cell sites in this area and that provided coverage to the crime scene and identified any cell sites that drive test data showed coverage that includes this 100-meter radius around the crime scene. Then he goes on to say the state has not disclosed this analysis. Page 29 and 30 represent any time the 8458 utilize a cell site identified as part of page 28. So page 28 was that 100-meter radius. Between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m., 23 separate instances between July 9th and November 7th, 2022. Balance will testify that the 8458 phone utilized cell service consistent with being at the crime scene during these days and times. One of those dates that we know of is the August 21st traffic stop that had occurred. Now, that was a little bit further away, but that was around 11, and the traffic stop was closer to the Winco. But according to the documents, he was in the area. Now we know it's within 100 meters of that house for about an hour that night.
Well, you know what I think is interesting, just reading that means they likely have on the November 7th, 6 days before that he was there. Or they would have, I mean, the last date on there is probably the last date that they have a 100-meter sighting or whatever you call it, ping, right? Yeah. I mean, that's pretty crazy. That means 6 days before the homicides, he was right there again.
Yeah. And between 10 and 4 a.m., so 10 p.m. and 4 a.m., there's not a lot of shopping that you can do in Moscow between 10 and 4 a.m.
Well, that is interesting. Yeah, 10 to 4. That's exactly the time. I bet you he scouted it out, practice runs, doing all these different things. I mean, that's what it feels like, too. And I actually think each time he did the loop, it was a practice. Like, especially that first one. He pulls over. On the first loop, he stops there for a minute by the Madison Mogen's window, basically just sits there for a minute, then he drives away.
Yeah.
So he's just waiting, and that's kind of how he does it, except it's 13 minutes on the last one.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And, for me, I think that, so to me, I think that the reason why he's passing by so much, the first time may have been a test drive, but I think there's some sort of light on. I think there's an indicator for the DoorDasher. Xana, apparently, according to her friends, ordering DoorDash, at the early morning hours was not something that was uncommon. And so I'm pretty sure that she realized that her house was positioned kind of weird. It's called 1122 King Road, but it's facing Queen Road. And so it's not like you can pick your DoorDash or your Uber Eats or whoever. So you're probably going to have to leave an indicator on of, hey, this is where the house is located, left the light on. I think that's why if it did happen at 3:59, that very next pass by at 4:05 when he pulls in and stops,
he's looking.
Yeah, he's looking, and I think also it's go time. I think that's why he stops in front of the apartment 500 or whatever it is, and then he backs up, turns around. I think he even hits the horn. He hasn't even made entry into the building, and yet you can already see nerves and mistakes are starting to happen. I'm not surprised he made bigger mistakes after that. To be honest, I'm
not sure what day that we wanted. We talk about being on the show, but I actually I did route number 1 and 2 or something. I think first, then I did 3 by itself, and then 4. Now they're all together, and it's just amazing. On that pass number 4, it's actually the end of 3 and 4 kind of connected, because at the end of 3, that's where it matters, because if the DoorDash is delivered at 3:59, and then I think it's like 3:59:20 something, the white Elantra is spotted driving on King Road heading out again. So that means they would have had to pass each other. I mean, that means no, it's actually 3:58 and something. Hold on a second. Gotta get this. My mom's calling me. So 3:58, I think, is when that was. Like 3:58. I don't have the number sitting in front of me, but like 40, let's say. Yeah. So that means when the Elantra is leaving for the DoorDash to deliver it at 3:59, they had to have passed each other right there on King and Queen. However, if he drops it off at 3:59 and 47 seconds or whatever the hell it was, when the what is it called, the key fob was going off, then that means Kohberger's already pulled off of King Road and is on Elantra Drive, because I think it's 4 o'clock and some odd seconds, it's on Volanta heading the other direction. So they're right in the same area. And I think, like you were just saying, he saw the vehicle pulling in, and he does a quick U-turn on Volanta and comes straight back at like 4:01, but he doesn't go into the complex again. He goes straight down Taylor Avenue. And that's when he drives by Ridge Road, and his license plate is not visible, and he goes all the way back around again, and then enters in at 4:05, does that U-turn, the 3-point turn to check again, because that light from Xana Kernodle might have still been on. I mean, who knows? But
Yeah.
he's definitely aware of the DoorDash driver, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think he's aware of the vehicle being there. I'm not sure he's aware that it's a DoorDasher.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it could be just anybody in the area. And so I think he thinks that they're asleep. He goes around there. I think he parks there on the side. I'm very positive that he's parking very similar to where you said that he parked at. It seems like the most easiest way, especially during that time of year where there's ice and ice particles on the ground and things could be slippery. You're probably going to want to park and position yourself in a manner that you can exit pretty quickly without losing control, etc. Which I do think, and I have heard that video, there's a screenshot in some of these documents of the vehicle leaving at a high rate of speed that it does peel out. And so, I'm not a CSI guy, but I'm wondering if they can match tire treads or tire compound from that incident.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, because there's another incident when they do that. When he does it, it's when he's sitting there at Linda Lane on that camera, and he's parked there for a second, and then he turns it into reverse. He turns the wheel, and when you turn the wheel while you're sitting there, you're going to leave tire compound behind. Now, the good thing about it is that you have that on camera. You have time, date, and vehicle. So I'm fairly positive that, and I think we've seen images of this where we've seen investigators out there at the scene looking at tire tracks all throughout there. And so as long as they documented it correctly, they can go back and say, all right, did we document a tire mark here at this location? Boom, you have it on camera. You have everything there. As long as they can get a hold of that tire, I think they might be able to potentially match it. So we'll see. Now, this here says that the defense is harping about 7 minutes. Have you looked into this 7-minute theory that the defense has?
Well, I think it's ludicrous. That's the one about the 2:53. It was when he turned his phone off, right? When they used to think it was 2:47 or something.
Correct.
I mean, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I actually did a whole. I loaded up ChatGPT, by the way, with all the data, and we sat there and argued. And after a while, ChatGPT just switched over. And went, oh my God, this guy's guilty as hell. I mean, the thing is it only takes 10 minutes to drive from Pullman, Washington to Moscow, Idaho, maybe 15 at the most. So what relevance does it have that he turned his phone off at 2:53 when we have a sighting of him at 3:26 on Indian Hills Drive? So maybe added 6 minutes to get to there, whatever. There's so much time. He could have taken in Pullman, could have headed west for a little bit and turned around, and I think he did little tactics like that, to be honest with you, where he would look like he's heading some way and then do something different and go the other way just to kind of throw people off.
I think he definitely did that, and I think he knew the lay of the land. So here's the thing. So what Ann Taylor is claiming is, so here's her claim. She's saying that the phone does not turn off at 2:47; it turns off at 2:54. And that she claims that a vehicle can travel quite a bit of a distance in 7 minutes, and that the direction that it traveled in was in an opposite direction than from Moscow. And their question is that there's a video that the state plans on presenting of a white sedan that passes by a Floyd cannabis shop at 3:02. And so if her statement is that at 2:49, which I believe he's on Nevada Street, is when his phone turns off, that he took off. He didn't travel down 270 towards Floyd Cannabis. Thus, that can't be his Elantra. However, if you go back down to the PCA, even though they say that his phone turns off at 2:49, they have video of his phone driving up and down Nevada Street and around this area up until 2:53. So it's a little bit of a misleading, because yes, although during the time of the PCA there's about 7 minutes unaccounted, they do have it accounted on video. So in reality, there's only 1 minute that there isn't that's potentially arguing that could be not there. Now,
so they're going to say it's at that Floyd Cannabis, it's at 3:02, so that's 9 minutes. It easily could get there.
correct. And there's a camera here, and they're saying that the vehicle does not travel this way. However,
it just turn around. I mean, it's just
you can either turn around, or there's a street right here that takes you all the way around, and you get around this camera right here, and you don't, and it's right here, right in front of Floyd's camera.
Oh, cool. So then it brings it back out, and then he goes by Floyd's camera. But so he would have been on other cameras, but he thought, oh, I'm tricking them. They won't pick it up because if they'll see that I'm not on that camera, so why would they even look at Floyd's cannabis, right? Something like that.
Yeah, and so even well, his thing is that he's saying is that he traveled towards Wildlife Park, that he went down south or southwest, and that he didn't travel this way. There's a camera here that had he traveled to Moscow would have been the most direct route, and that this vehicle passing here at 3:02 is a different Elantra, and that there is 2 Elantras now out there at the same time, thus leaving some sort of reasonable doubt.
Yeah, you know what's also impossible is for his phone to ping by Blaine, Idaho, and for his vehicle to go to Wildlife Park, and then be back into Pullman by 5 whatever time that was, 5:30. What time was that when he got back there? 5:34 or something. Yeah, like there's no, it's absolutely impossible. I actually I figured it out. That the drive that they have on the map, how it cuts across, I actually drove that. It's crazy. It just goes out in the middle of this rural stuff, but it is exact on the timing. Like I drove it, and I just pretended it was what was it, 4:48 when I was near Blaine, and I just drove, and I got right by that camera at 5:25, I think, near Johnson Avenue or whatever the hell that was up there. I can't remember the names because I can't see it on my map. I usually use my map to throw out the names and everything.
Got you. Let me see if I have this here, because I have the other argument, and I'm just curious if you had driven this road. The argument that they have is that the defense is that Bryan Kohberger's white Elantra does not travel on I-95 South, and that there's cameras here at this Mundy's machine shop, and that there's other cameras that would have captured him traveling south, but yet there's no cameras of him. There's another way around. I wish I finished it, but I thought I did. It must have disappeared. But you travel, instead of going towards 95, you just make a right. You can get down this road here. I marked that, and then then it attaches to this red line. You can cut back here, and then guess what? You end up back in on I-95 somewhere around right here, right where his phone turned on.
Well, I mean so that's pretty interesting, because that would make up. I determined a long time ago that when he leaves at 4:21, he should get to Blaine by 3:32. Okay, just if you just drive a regular pace, not even fast, it's only 5 miles down Highway 95 is where Blaine is. So the thing is I think there's 16 minutes of missing time. So where you just laid out, it could easily be that he drove that way and it killed all that time. That's where he dumped. I think it's when that 16 minutes is where he got rid of the bloody items, because you wouldn't want to be driving around with that, right?
No, I agree 100%. I think he definitely did that. Probably some other things to himself, to be honest with you. I think this was a sexual crime, even though he didn't maybe perhaps do anything there sexually in nature at the crime scene. I'm sure it happened out here in the middle of nowhere. Him doing that, reliving the crime, cleaning up, probably hiding certain things. If he had been out there before in the past, I wouldn't be surprised if he had something prepared already for him to go to discard items, because there is a matter of like 18 minutes that is missing, because this trip here, I think it's about 6 miles out of the way. that you would go to get back around. So, there's still a good 10 minutes there that you can traverse that's still missing.
I've got another way I could show you here if you want to flip back. Yeah, so there's also this way. That's the thing. We're basing it on what law enforcement says. It went down Highway 95. So then there is 16 minutes of missing time. Okay, but let's say the vehicle right here, this is River Palouse Drive, but it passes 95 and then goes all the way over like this and does this crazy out of the way route. There's Blaine right there. And then maybe that's when it pinged and he got rid of his items up in that area. And then look at it. It actually jumps back in right before it cuts across and does that wild cross-country route, and then he drives back up this way. How about that, huh?
That is
another one. Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. And also, I was going to tell you before we get too far away from it was the DoorDash driver.
Yeah.
The GPS coordinates that was in that document on one little thin line shows that that it pinged on the back of the house here. If it's an 8, okay, it looks like an 8, just one number. If it's a 9, see right here where it says 7219. If it's an 8, it puts it right back here on the porch, which is really interesting, right? Because that key fob sound is at let's see, 3:59 and 45 seconds or so, and then again at 3:59, like 30 something. So it's almost exactly the amount of time you park, go around to the back, drop it off, take the photo, walk back, boom, and then you're back in your car. So it's interesting. Did he drop the DoorDash off at the back porch, which would kind of make sense, right? For Xana, because she's on the second floor. It's right by the kitchen. You can just come around the back, and apparently they'll do that on campuses. So
that makes sense, because that video you were showing, or that perspective you showed at the top of the show where you were standing behind 1119. I wonder what it is you could see. If there was a light being left, maybe it was those string of lights in the back, and maybe there was a light in the kitchen on, because that's what I think you would see. Because I'm not sure if you're going to be able to determine if there's a light in the front of the house on from 119 or 1119 King Road from behind it. But if there's the string of lights, which I think we're on, and also the back porch light on, that's something that you would probably be able to see from that, where he's sitting back there on Taylor Avenue.
Yeah, no, easily. I think you can easily see down there. Yeah, and see, this is where it gets. See right here. So if it was 3:59, right? So look what this time is: 3:50 and 27 seconds. The headlights are heading north on King Road. Behind King Road, it says right here. So I mean, that's when I think that's when it did its. That one doesn't sound right. Let me see. 3:51, traveling south behind 1119 King Road. I think that might be like the reverse of that, but in my animation, the vehicle's driving right here. 3:58:23. There it is. It's going like this, and then it turns this way. But if he's already delivering at 3:59, they probably past each other right there. I don't know if you saw this version of it. This is the one that has the actual vehicle moving around. So let's see.
Yeah, that's the one I had seen.
So this is 3:49 right now. So here's where it makes its loop around. I mean, I guess we can move it forward to the 3:58 time frame, about like right around here. And then if you watch this, let's see, 3:50. So look at right there. I have the red vehicle right there is the DoorDash guy.
Yeah.
So if you go about right here, so right here he's parked. And the timing of him being parked there and passing here at 3:58:23 means that he had to pass the DoorDash for him to be able to drop that off at 3:59. And then he drives up here, and I think he's looking over there the whole time. He's looking, checking that out, and he's kind of paranoid about it. So he does a U-turn, I think, right here. because the timing works for it. You turn, he does a U-turn, because he's like, holy shit, let me go see what that was. And then he goes back up there, and right now you can see the DoorDash guys leaving if it was 3:59. And he doesn't go in here, though. And he keeps following it. But wouldn't it make more sense if the DoorDash was still there, and that's why he drove by the entrance again?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, too, that the reason why he didn't drive there is because there's somebody parked there.
Right. And then this is when he passes at 4:01. He goes by the Ridge Road camera, and that's when he gets the fatal no front license plate shot. You know, it's interesting too. In the probable cause, it says the license plate missing shot was from the A&W. So
Yeah.
just kind of is that a real thing, or was it really this camera and the guy just kind of made a mistake?
I think it's probably both. I wouldn't be surprised if that you can tell it on both cameras. I think the identification of it being an Elantra was off the Ridge Road. So I think that you probably are going to be able to determine that there's a not a front license plate on both cameras. I think the Ridge Road is what determines it to be a 2015 to 16 Elantra.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what he has. Don't you feel like the argument that people have, I can go back to the regular view, I guess, but the argument people have, like, you know, they said it was a 2011 to 2013. How can they say that now it's like at the windshields can be replaced in the 2011 all the way to 2016. And I just wonder, why can't people also just upgrade what they want to say, like their minds, like, oh wow, you know what, this could actually include 2015 and 16.
Right. Yeah. No, the one thing I like to tell people is, like, do you think it morphs based on what they think? You know, based on what law enforcement is thinking.
Right.
Do you think that the video is changing? Because even some people think that there's a sunroof just because somebody released a video of a vehicle that had a sunroof hours earlier.
On Linda Lane over there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's ridiculous. God.
It's not the same. And folks are just kind of, I'm like, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that law enforcement and prosecution are just going to be like, man, hopefully nobody noticed the sunroof? Come on now.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. You know, I don't know how true this is. I can't say, I don't know, but somebody did reach out to me very early on when Bryan Kohberger was arrested and claimed that they knew somebody that had delivered a DoorDash delivery. If my memory serves me right, this is before, this is right around the time that we found out that there was a DoorDasher. And what I was told was that, you know, this lady gave me a bunch of information. She said that she had a relationship with the DoorDasher, whether they were friends, something else more related. I'm not gonna disclose. But she had mentioned that she was close to this person, and that all that they had seen was that they had pulled up and they had seen the lights on to the house, and that somebody was in the second floor looking out, waiting for her to drop off the items, and that a white car pulled up and just passed by, and that somebody was just looking really hard at the house. They gave me their information. They gave me their address, their phone number, a lot of different things. And I'm not necessarily certain where it gone, but her story of that the DoorDasher saw somebody just drive by and that person was just hyper focused on the house. I think that kind of falls in line with potentially what may have happened out there. Even if she's not saying the truth or not, I think that there's a possibility there that the DoorDasher was out there and did see that. Do you think the DoorDasher is testifying in this case?
I think they probably will. I mean, it seems like it's a nice timeline piece of information, and especially if they saw the white Elantra. Because I mean, in my video right here, they're passing each other on King Road. And even not, if it stayed there and delivered at 3:40 or 3:59 and 47 seconds, then it's probably leaving at like 4 o'clock and 40 seconds or so, and then the Elantra is just behind it. Yeah, you know, and then it's actually, you know, I mean, it's kind of, or it's still sitting there. I guess. I mean, that's the thing. It's like the later it gets that the DoorDash delivers, the more likely it was still there when Kohberger drove by at like 4:01, and I'm going to say Kohberger because I'm actually 100% certain that he's the guy. I'm not, you know.
No, I mean, I am too.
You know, I don't have any qualms of saying it. But they always say it's innocent until proven guilty, Gray. And I go, I know, but I'm not a court. This is what I think. You probably said the same thing about OJ.
Yeah,
Right?
I say the exact same thing as a guy. I'm not a judge. I'm not a juror. I'm not the prosecutor. I'm Daniel, and I'm saying that this guy did it. This is the route that I think he took. It's marked here in yellow. And the reason why I marked it in yellow, and then I marked these other roads that lead back to this place. The reason being is because a little bit later on, he goes to Clarkson, Washington, and then he heads on up. And according to the PCA, around Johnson, Washington, turns his phone off. And they say that he's in the area of where he was the night before. And so I thought, if he's turning his phone off here, there's roads that get him all up in here.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of that earlier when you had it go over there. I was like, that kind of marries nicely with the 5:32 to 5:36 when he turned his phone back on later in the evening. And they said he was back over there.
Exactly. And then the other thing too is it's weird. It's weird. I think this, you asked me what is something that is weird. I'll say that this is weird, that Moscow, Idaho doesn't preserve their cameras or whatever, because there is one here. And apparently we found out that during one of the trials that they don't record. However, there was this win.com or something like that took images of these cameras. And by the time that they figured out that there was images of that night had already passed. But the reason why I thought that he took that route more than anything else was because I don't know if he would have known that those cameras don't record. And at this intersection here, I mean, they're clear as day. And I would have thought, all right, this guy's doing some surveillance. He's not going to show where he left. And so I immediately thought he ain't going this way to get out. And that's where I ended up with this route down here.
Yeah, I think that seems like a pretty good one because it solves a few things. It does the 16 minutes of missing time, and then it gets it closer to the Johnson, Washington, or pings that happen, where it seems like, to me, when he's turning his phone on, he's needs it for mapping purposes or something like that during those moments. Like when he turned it on at 4:48. I think he turned it on because he thought, okay, I'm safe now. I'm somewhere else. And he needed to get that through those crazy roads. You have it kind of going on normal roads. Yeah. But I think I think that takes longer, actually, than when you cut across, because it cuts off many miles, even though it's sort of slower driving. Yeah. From the PC, I just did what the PCA had in it. Like he was just interpreting ping information. So how's the defense going to explain that, by the way?
I have no idea.
The pinging across, like it actually switches from this tower to this one, this one, and this one, all the way across in the morning, early morning hours.
Well, I mean, they do say he was south and southwest. And so I'm assuming they're going to say that this is him. But there's nothing out there. I did a...
but they're saying south and southwest of Pullman, not Moscow, right?
I believe they said Pullman and Moscow.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. It could be just Pullman. But that's exactly what I said. I was like, when his phone comes on, though, it's not west or southwest of Pullman. It's south of Moscow. And so I don't think they're going to be able to argue any of this. I think he turned on a VPN. I think that's been somewhat disclosed, or at least rumored out there, that he turned on a VPN. I think I read it in one of the documents, but I can't point it out to which one. And that he logged into one of his emails. I think it was the one that was spelled weird, but it says username at gmail.com or something like that. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if he's putting himself, or he tried to put the VPN so that he was out further west. But even if he did that, let's just say they can prove that he put on a VPN as soon as he turned on his phone, and that he's trying to mask his location and show that he's further west. I think that's even more evidence of guilt, don't you?
Yeah, no, it's just, I mean, why would you drive around with a VPN at 4 a.m? Why do you need that? Just this whole thing. It's just, he turns his phone off at 2:53. He says he's driving around that night. They admit that he's driving around that night. And then a vehicle matching his how do you know that's him? And then Ann Taylor actually admits that the vehicle driving by at 401 is like his car. I mean, the way she worded it by Ridge Road, she's basically admits that's his, but you can't keep it going because you say the next camera is his, but you can't tell that's the same car. Listen, and Taylor, listen, like if you had a camera of a guy going around a corner, walking down a street, going around a corner, wearing a blue jacket in good light and blue jeans and a hat, and then you go around the corner and there's another camera picking up, but it's dark, but it's just right around the corner. And now you can see that he has a hat on, he's got a jacket and jeans, but you can't see the color of it. So you can't tell me that that's the same person, but just logically, it is the same person. He came around the corner and there's a camera. There's no doors. He didn't just disappear, So it's these cameras aren't right next to each other, and that was a good argument they made. They said I think the prosecution said they're trying to require us to have a camera on every building to keep filming the car moving around, but that's just not. You don't need to do it that way.
No, and here's the crazy part. So they have that vehicle traveling across this highway right here where the Sunmart is, where that A&W is, and then it's at Ridge Road one of the times where they've been able to determine what the year, make, and model is, and then it turns left, and the argument is that there's not a camera between Ridge Road and Linda Lane, the 1320. There's literally 3 entrances, and so for Bryan Kohberger's defense to be correct, the real killer would have had to have turned off here at the exact moment that he's turning off and would have turned on here. Right. And that person have the same vehicle that matches his. Surprisingly, also his DNA.
missing a front license plate too. Weirdly.
Everything the same. And it's just almost an impossibility.
His twin brother. You're right. A twin brother driving the same vehicle.
Well, that at one point was their argument. There was I had a show called the Bryan Kohberger Has an Evil Twin. The defense had argued that during the IGG that the prosecution and law enforcement didn't look into other Kohberger family members who also share the same father as Bryan, who may have been in the area. Like that
his sister. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was you could tell it was a male DNA. So
right. That's the part that's people. I don't know. People just don't get it, I had one guy, a whole video was made saying that maybe Kohberger was just a peeping Tom and that he stopped by behind the house and he was looking into it, but it was somebody else killing, but somehow got the DNA on the knife sheath and then let it sit there. And it's,
it's insane.
I mean, man, the leaps of logic that you have to take. It's really easy to do this case. It's complicated, but it's easy to cover because if you just go with the logical information and the facts of the case, it just points right to guilt. There hasn't been anything that I've seen that made, again, like we were saying earlier, that makes you just go, yeah, wow, God, that's wild. It's just all smoke and mirror stuff that I've seen. Even Cy Ray, I mean, they're going to use him as an expert in some way, maybe. But I mean, did you see that case he got discredited in? For God's sakes, I mean, it was incredible. It's like it was a stalking case, ironically, where the let's see, he was a state witness at the time. It showed that the vehicle of this guy was driving around the house every night, over and over and over again, and then his own GPS coordinates of the vehicle that are way more accurate show that he's nowhere near there. He's driving somewhere else. So he just was tailoring the information in his magic little program to say whatever they wanted it to say.
Yeah, well, I mean, in his documents, he throws an FBI agent under the bus. He says that in 2021, in August of 2021, that he was shown these advanced timing records. Because one of his arguments is that law enforcement should have his Bryan Kohberger's advanced timing records because he knows for a fact that they existed before June of 2023. And the state agrees, and the state has given the defense advanced timing records from 2022. They did from 2 of the victims, another person who was even they specifically put in their documents, Cy Ray says, a suspect early on in the investigation, and 3,800 phones that were part of that tower dump that occurred.
What was the time frame now of the dump?
Within 7 days, because
Right. That's right. That's right. I saw that one. That you
yeah,
did.
so there's a 7-day time frame. So prior to June of 2023, law enforcement didn't really have access to these advanced timing records. They did, but they didn't. It was expensive, and so only really one law enforcement entity did, which was the FBI. And AT&T only held on to them for 7 days. They didn't hold on to them for much longer. Every instance that Cy puts in his affidavit as to why law enforcement should have Bryan Kohberger's call advanced timing records is within the 7-day period.
But let's say you did it. Let's say you did the calling advance records for that night. What time frame was it? Just for like a 7-day full 24 hours a day period, or would it be? I mean, that's not what you're saying, but what time frame did they get the timing advance data from?
It was from, so they did the 3,800. So it's kind of separate for the victims and the person that they suspected early on. The one that I guess that they're alluding that should have it is probably the 3,800 phones that they did a tower dump from. However, Bryan Kohberger's phone was turned off.
It was off. That's what I'm saying. It's like his phone is off. So how in the hell would it even make it in there?
Well,
I mean, you know,
his argument is that he believes, I think he's misreading the notion or the motion. The state is not saying that there isn't advanced timing records, and he is saying that that's what the state is saying. He is saying that the state is claiming that there are no advanced timing records and that AT&T did not provide them prior to 2023. But they're only referencing Bryan Kohberger's. They're saying we don't have Bryan Kohberger's because prior to June of 2023, AT&T didn't hold them for more than 7 days. Now he's missing the whole 7-day period, and I'm surprised because even in his own document, he claims that he's worked with AT&T, GLDC for 15 years. He understands the timing records and this, that, and a third. But yet he completely blows by the 7-day retention period. Now,
well, they didn't even know who Kohberger was for a month.
Yeah,
right. Like it's like a month later. Yeah, they go, oh, there he is. But then that 7 days was gone a long time ago.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. The 7 days had already surpassed and exhausted. And his claim, but the crazy thing is the state responded, right, saying that we only hold them for 7 days. And then Cy responded to that by saying, no, you guys are lying. You guys have them, and doesn't ever question the 7 days. I personally think he wrote that document prior to the state's response, and the defense just dropped it on that date, regardless, even though it's probably going to make their witness look like an idiot.
I think the judge is just going to deny it. The judge is really on top. He's smart. This guy, he knows the case. That's what I was just kind of shocked that whole time when Ann Taylor was arguing various things, especially the DNA and everything. He was just, no, you know. I mean, I think he knows what the reality is in this case. He's seen the evidence, and it's like, you know, they're just trying to make things go away. I mean, Ann Taylor seems to be just throwing everything at the wall, hoping something sticks. Would you be surprised if he pled guilty at some point before it even happens?
Maybe. You know, I know a lot of people are saying no, but you know, I think that if he's anything like some of these people who I think he idolized, like a BTK, I think that the publicity, I think there's a high that he probably gets off of everybody knowing who he is, what he did, those type of things. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did something similar. You know, I know a lot of folks are saying, no, he's narcissistic. He's not going to do that. And it's quite possible. The other thing is too, is will the state, you know, offer him a plea? You know, I
don't think they will. The family doesn't want to.
Yeah, I don't think any of the families want that, to do a plea. I don't know if all the families want, you know, the death penalty. I don't think that's the case, but I don't think anybody wants a plea deal done.
Yeah.
And so it's gonna be interesting. It'll be interesting. Tomorrow is a big hearing on a bunch of these motions. You know, are you gonna be live streaming it?
I think so. Yeah. Gonna get a shot. That's really early for me, but because I usually stay up kind of late and then I go to sleep, and by the time I usually get up at 8 or 9, but I got to be up, and then I'll do it at 7 just to kind of get things ready to go.
Yeah. I'm probably going to catch. I'm not sure if I'm live streaming it yet or not. I know I'm definitely going to go live after the fact to talk about everything. I may do 2 live streams tomorrow. We'll see. But let's answer some questions and comments here. We have Molly with a $10 super chat saying, good afternoon. This is my first live chat and I'm excited. You always have good programs. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Nessie Burns comes in. Thank you for your hard work and a bunch of the lives in this case, Daniel. Thank you. A to Z coming in with their membership. Sirius Gray, your Chat GPT eyebrow comments are the funniest thing ever. Thanks for being here tonight. What's this Chat GPT?
Oh yeah. Well, so what's amazing about Chat GPT, I'm actually a big fan of it now because it so logically went through it. But then somebody said, "Great, try bro mode." So I said, "Okay, do bro mode," and then it reads through. It goes, "Hey man," like his eyebrows, and then I said, "Okay, be as sarcastic and humorous as possible," and then it came back with just this hilarious stuff. His eyebrows were so big, like what would it say? They showed up in the courtroom before he did. I mean these eyebrows. It just keeps going on and on and on. It's crazy. I made a video of it. If you want to get a laugh, that's one you should do because it goes through all the facts too and just says right. So he bought the knife sheath and balaclava before. I mean, how about just say, "Hey, this is me. I'm the killer." I mean, that's how it starts talking to you after a while. It's crazy. I mean, it doesn't talk to you. It's words, but I actually have this Speechify software that's connected to Chrome and immediately starts reading it. So it's like you're just listening to the ChatGPT talking back, you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. I haven't seen that one. Thank you, Sirius. I'm gonna check that one out.
It's pretty funny.
Jen gives a One Turkey Show membership, and Allie's been a member for 7 months. Let's see. It doesn't surprise me that AT has made some dumb defense decisions. She is mediocre at best, laughing all the way to the bank. That's why she stalls. She will probably write a book. Probably so. I've heard that one of the sisters is writing a book. What do you think about that? One of Bryan possibly. I don't know if it's true or not. I think it's Howard Bloom who mentioned it.
Does he have more than how many sisters does he have? I mean, does he just have one sister and that's it? I mean, I don't even know.
I'm aware of 2 sisters, and both of them are in the psychology profession.
Probably thinking, man, our brother's nuts. We better go take some classes. That's probably.
I think so. Kathleen Ramsland, is somebody that Bryan Kohberger studied under. She's been in contact with the family. I remember there was I don't remember if it was like Dateline or Nightline or whoever, but somebody had made contact with her. She had mentioned that she wasn't going to talk to anybody about Bryan Kohberger, but that she has reached out to the families. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's where this book is potentially coming from. But it does sound like with the state's documents that they're going to use Kohberger family members as witnesses. How impactful do you think that's going to be for a jury that his own family members are going to be testifying against him?
Yeah, that's pretty devastating. I don't know if the father will. I mean, that'd be it seems like he actually had some knowledge somehow. Like those, not that he did it, but like, I mean, not that he did it beforehand, but on the way back, that drive when he kept trying to, have the officers remember a different case. Oh yeah, they're talking about Brent Kopacka. Like, oh, the big case was the Idaho 4 case. And that's what you would have brought up, but it seemed like he was deflecting intentionally each time they were pulled over. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a thought. I don't have anything against him or anything. I don't know him.
What do you think about those images of Bryan Kohberger that were released that they plan on showing in trial? What was your first reaction of this image, taken just a few hours after the murders?
That looks like a pretty clear version there. He looks like, you immediately see that he's got the bushy eyebrows. It's really interesting because this is just after he had just got back again from driving to Moscow, Idaho, because he got home at 5, then he drove back over there at like 9 in the morning or something. And this photo is at like 10 something. So he's probably like, I'm not sure. I think it's sort of like a trophy picture. That's something I was going to ask you about. Do you think it's possible? I think it's almost likely or not likely, but like 50%, let's say, that the knife sheath left was intentional as a calling card. Because he wanted to be like the K-bar killer, and then later, if he ever got caught, he'd be Kohberger, the K-bar killer. It's like a perfect little, and that's, he studied serial killers, right? So that's something a lot of them leave as a calling card or some kind of a, take something with them.
It could be, I struggle with that one, because after 4:00, as we mentioned earlier, his driving pattern changes. He goes back, and according to the PCA, what we don't see is him attempting to either do another 3-point turn or park in front of the house. He's unable to do that. So he's unable to do simple tasks like parking and stuff. And he's having to do another turnaround, and that's when he comes back around like at 4:06, 4:07, and then he parks back there at 4:08. And during that time, you hear the horn go off as well. I think nerves hit him. I think that if this was indeed his first time doing this, he was already making mistakes. He was getting nervous. I honestly think it was an accident that he left it behind. I don't think he purposefully did it.
I mean, a lot of people said, I know the arguments both ways. My thing is I think Madison Mogen was the target, and he thought he was going to be able to slip in there. She was asleep, and he was just going to leave that there, and he thought he cleaned it. That's why the knife sheath is so clean that all it had was one single source of DNA on the bottom of the button snap that he missed cleaning. That's where my logic comes in. And so then it's like he was just going to leave it there, but then he left it there anyways, even after he had to attack Kaylee. And then maybe on the way downstairs, Xana sees him and goes, "Hey, there's somebody here." And then it got more involved, and he kills 2 more people. But it would have been just so clean had he, let's say he just killed Madison and he didn't leave that DNA on that knife sheath. It would have just been like, for him, I mean, it'd be tough to have ever arrested this guy, even though the Elantra information would still have surfaced at some point,
Well, here's the thing, though. So, like, in his May 2020 documents that he wrote, he really emphasized on not contaminating the crime scene. And during a specific time when he was talking about looking for potential intruder or serial killer or anything like that, he really referenced that to check the back, or to check the doorknobs and the door for DNA. Now, what we know is that this guy left the sliding glass door open the entire time. Now, I personally think he did that so that way he didn't touch the door more often than he had to. So if you touch it once, there's a chance you leave DNA behind. If you, to open it, you close it, that's a second time. Even if you're walking out, now you've exerted yourself, you've committed a crime, even if it wasn't 4 and it was only anticipated to be 1, it's with a knife. It's something that you're expecting to exert yourself to open the door again on your way out. That's the time that you're most likely to leave your DNA behind. And so I saw, and I pick up on details really. That's my superpower. I like to tell people. I saw the doorknob thing that he brought up there, and we know that he left the sliding glass door open. The reason we know that is because at 4:17, there's a dog barking outside. They believe that to be Murphy. 4:17, you also hear the voices and the thud. So it was a struggle happening at the same time. And so that means that back sliding glass door was open. So if he's going to that extent to not leave DNA behind, I find it hard to believe that he's going to leave an item behind that he touched.
But what about if he thought he cleaned it really well? That's what I'm saying. Why is it so? I guess we don't know. There might be other DNA that's mixtures and blood all over that knife sheath. And I'm just going off the thing about there was only one single source of DNA on the bottom of the button, which means that, like, he knew, okay, if I wipe this down and everything, he thought he probably, I'm just saying, if he ordered it, he may have kept it pretty pristine, but one time snapped it closed and then wipe it down and then just missed that little tiny thing. I get what you're saying. Also, the dog barking. A lot of people think maybe that was Murphy out of Kaylee's room upstairs on that deck. Maybe she left it open a little bit for him to go outside. Because if he ran downstairs, I mean, there's so many interesting ideas that people have out there. Like, for example, maybe he came a different night and broke the sliding glass door locking mechanism, knowing that these college students aren't going to fix that anytime soon, right? So what if he came on one of those trips, like on the 7th that you mentioned earlier, and he
Yeah.
breaks the sliding glass door lock, because people have such a hard time with the, how did he know the door was going to be unlocked? And I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, shit, he could have probably used the knife to jimmy it open or whatever. But let's say he went there one night and he kind of broke, the lock and made it so it didn't really work, and they just didn't fix it. So that way he was very certain that he could get in that night. And, that's just an explanation of, possibly how he was able to get in, because people want to know that answer, and I don't have one for them. How did he know?
I mean, it's interesting because we've all seen pictures of these stools holding the backsliding.
Right, that's exactly why. Yeah, exactly.
And so it makes you wonder, was it broken, and or at least broken at another time?
Yeah, law enforcement used the chairs to lock it because the lock is broken. That's actually how I came up with the thought of that, was like the chairs are being used to lock it, and that's law enforcement doing that. So it must be that the lock doesn't work, or they would just lock it right behind them. They would just press the lock, and
yeah, and then it would have had to have been something that Dylan or Bethany had explained to the law enforcement that had already been broken, as far as why there was no sign of breaking entry, no sign of forced entry. So yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting that he may have gone back. I think he did. I mean, if he's out there 23 times with his phone on, imagine how many times he was out there with his phone off. I think there's going to be a few times that happened. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that on certain occasions that his phone turned off on other nights, and turned on, and he was out for an extended period of time, kind of showing some things. Now this is the image here. I don't know if you've looked into. Have you ever seen the movie American Psycho?
Yeah, with the behind a curtain with the...
Yeah, what do you well, no, the one with
oh, maybe I haven't seen that. I think I was thinking
with
something
Christian
else.
Bale.
No, I don't think I have seen that one.
I recommend you watch it, because Bryan Kohberger wrote when he was young that he had no feelings, this, that, and the third, right? Everybody's a sack of meat. There is a little dialogue in the beginning, a monologue in this movie. Now, this movie, American Psycho, stars Christian Bale. His name in the movie is Patrick Bateman. He's a serial killer and is a psychopath. And he has this whole weird entry in the very beginning where he's talking about, who he is. And at the end, he's pulling off this like wax face mask because he's taking a shower and he's taking care of his skin, and his face is super shiny, very similar to like Bryan Kohberger's face in this image. And he goes in there and he's talking. He says, "I'm 27," which was Bryan Kohberger's age when he committed this crime. And he's a Wall Street guy, successful, whatever the case may be. There's some interesting things in this movie. Like, this is one of the times where he's about to commit a murder. And then, this is the headphones. And a lot of people were thinking, that headphones plus that looks kind of weird. In the movie, he's listening to Huey Lewis, and he listens to Huey Lewis when he commits his murders. Here's a picture of Bryan Kohberger with his hands, and here's an image here of Patrick Bateman with his hands. And this is when he's being interviewed by the detective and referencing one of the persons who's missing that he may have committed a murder against. And so there's a lot of interesting stuff there. Now, I think that Bryan Kohberger watched a lot of movies. One of the biggest hint that I think he watched a lot of movies is that one young lady that was that went out on a date with him, and that he said, "You have great birthing hips," or whatever. Yeah, that's from the movie Dark Shadows with Johnny Depp, where Johnny Depp is this weirdo. He's a vampire, and in that movie, he likes women based off their birthing hips. And so I'm just wondering, a young Kohberger, 18, 20 something, I don't know, 14. This movie came out in the year 2000, so he was definitely, the movie came out before he was making those writings. I wonder if he idolized this movie, or maybe saw a lot of his feelings in this movie. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he did. He doesn't seem like he has a personality really of his own. Like, he's just sort of a drone. I don't know what you call it, but maybe he was searching for something else. And he also studied about. You mentioned BTK. I was actually thinking. I thought it was interesting. I made a video early on about it being like maybe he was trying to
like a combination of killers like Bundy, for example, moved from Pennsylvania to Washington. You know, he goes to Washington, then he goes to an off-campus sorority house like Bundy did in Florida, but the killing method's different. You know, he uses a knife, and maybe that's like some other one. You know, I feel like he's just sort of, like you're saying, maybe he took something from this movie, took something from another movie, took something from this serial killer, took something from that one. It's just all part of, like, I think he was going to be a serial killer, is what I think.
I think so too. The interesting thing, though, about Ted Bundy, one, Ted Bundy is brought up in American Psycho, and two, Joyce LePage. She was a person that attended WSU, passed away in 1979 or 71. I apologize. And some theorize that Ted Bundy was the person that took her life, and that this was Ted Bundy's first victim. Now, some people say no, it's not Bundy. They asked him, he denied it. He said he did these other ones, but denied that one.
Well, if he denied it, it can't be him, right? I mean,
exactly right. But the situation is, it's been rumored that that's his first victim. Bryan Kohberger knew that. What do you think about his alibi? And I put that in quotations. That his alibi is the location of Ted Bundy's potential first victim, where her body was found, which is Wawai Caverns Park.
Oh, up there. Oh, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know. I didn't actually never. Well, I didn't know the story of the lady that you're referencing.
Yeah. Look her up. She went missing. They found her. She was wrapped up in a WSU carpet.
Was she beaten, or how was she killed?
I think she was strangled and beaten. Yes.
Because Bundy was like he was a vicious man. He just grab what's ever around and just start pounding. I mean, he was a nut job.
Yeah. No, yeah,
definitely.
I
mean, not that there's a better way to do it. I mean, they're all nut jobs. I mean,
yeah, and so, you know, like I said, I just, some of those things that I had picked up on, and I was like, man, that's interesting. You know, I think, I mean, even law enforcement is pulling up this Reddit that he did, and on this Reddit, I believe the reason why they're pulling it up is because of who he was talking to, but he was asking some serious questions about emotions during the crime, how they felt. And the weird thing about it is this was supposedly for his thesis, but he put this out about a month before he graduated. When you would have expected his thesis to have been completed or the bulk of it to have been done, that's when he started this. But I'm just thinking that, you know, he's doing this thesis. He's probably talking to some people that, if they're committing crimes that are similar to the one that he committed, they probably have some feelings and some commonalities. And he's probably telling himself, man, I have these feelings. I have these urges. And I think he started to build himself up 100%. But I do think you're absolutely right. I think he was on pace to be a serial killer. And had he not left the knife sheath,
the calling card, he was serious. He was going to be a serial killer. K-Bar killer. No, I don't know. I don't know about that. That's a guess that I have. But I don't know if they're going to say that was a calling card. That would be something I'd love to know the answer to, though, because that's what a serial killer, like, he, you know, you got to think about, if Kohberger is out there copying killers,
yeah,
he probably knows that a lot of them leave the little calling card, like, I was here. And maybe when he was ordering another K-Bar knife sheath that they said he was doing later, or a knife, maybe that was for another killing he was going to do. And he was going to, you know, instead of, like, it'd be kind of weird for him to buy another knife because he thinks eventually they're going to be digging through and find that he bought one, and then, oh, I have one, look, it's right here, but they could just go look at the order. I mean, don't you just think he's sort of dumb sometimes? Some of the stuff he's doing, like the DNA crap in the kitchen, he's sorting it out, but I mean, okay, your dad's DNA is still going to be there, right? I mean, it's still going to point to you regardless of you separating it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, he made a lot of dumb mistakes, that's for sure. You know, a lot of people look at his, I guess, where his status was as far as being a PhD student and align that with intelligence. And I'm not saying that he was stupid. He was intelligent, but I think in his attempt to mask the smallest details that normally get people caught, he messed up the biggest ones, taking his phone, his car. I mean, everything. Like you mentioned, it's just it's crazy.
I think when he got pulled over twice on the way home, that made him really paranoid, and that's when he started separating the DNA. I bet you if those two cops had not pulled him over, he wouldn't have been doing that because he would have felt like he was safe. Why would he even be at his house looking for DNA? But now he's paranoid because they're right there. You know, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think so too. I think it was probably like a complete mind F for him because, you know, what happened on that trip? Bryan Kohberger's life was taken during a SWAT thing that happened at WSU. He's probably thinking in his mind, man, they're going to pin it on this guy. They got their guy. They got their fall guy. And then boom, he's getting pulled over twice. And now he's thinking to himself, what the hell's going on?
Do you think that was intentional? Like, because they do make it sound, the way they worded it was just two random pullover for the same infraction. But man, how many times have you been pulled over twice in 10 minutes or whatever, you know, an hour, right? It's just crazy.
That actually happened to me one time.
Okay, one time. All right. So it did happen to you.
Yeah, I was traveling to San Antonio and I was doing 80 miles an hour, and at the time it was 65, and I got pulled over before the city. It was a small city I was entering. I think it was Uvalde, and I was pulling into Uvalde. No, it was Hondo. I was pulling into Hondo, and I got pulled over. And then as I was leaving Hondo, I got pulled over for doing 81. But I was speeding. I mean, I was doing the exact same thing.
Well, I actually got pulled over in Moscow when I was there.
Really?
On a live stream. I was doing a live stream, and I was and then I go woo, and I had to pull over, and a cop comes, and you know I'm still live streaming, and he says, "Yeah, you're going like I think I was something like 35 and a 20 something right there on campus, you know."
Yeah.
And like all these people went out and got the body camera. Oh, look at Gray, you know, the troll system. You know, it's just okay, great. I'm sitting there and I'm just, you know, I got a ticket. It sucked. But it was just kind of weird to do it during, like, I'm literally out there filming, doing the routes. Like, I've driven all the routes and it's all on film.
Yeah.
All of them, you know, from all the way from Indian Hills Drive all the way around. And by the way, if you start at Indian Hills Drive, just drive normally. Although I don't know if I'm ever quite driving normal, but like you're driving and it's exactly the timing. You go right by at 328, you drive by the E&W, 329 Ridge Road, 329 40. You know, it's right exactly the correct timing. So if you just use those kind of things in their examples, if they go out and say, look, we drove it, look how similar the timing is, I think that would help the jury go, okay, I see how that, I mean, really likely that's the Elantra, and then it's really likely that it's here. I think once you even get to the complex, it's really easy to keep saying that's the same Elantra because is there 4 different Elantras that park behind 500 Queen Road that all look the same? Yes, we're same color too. Like everybody goes, oh, there's 50,000 Elantras, and I always go, well, there's only 20,000 people that live in Moscow, so they all have 2.5 of them. That's amazing. A whole city filled with just Elantras. And by the way, are they all white? Those 50,000, are they all white Elantras? You know,
missing a front license plate.
Yeah.
And the kicker is the person driving it also has Bryan Kohberger's DNA on their person, whether it's themselves or just on the K-bar not. They also have to have his DNA on their person.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Amazing.
For Bryan Kohberger to have not committed this crime, I think there has to be a lot of impossibilities. And you know, do you think that this trial is going on as planned? You think it's going to happen in August? It's been moved a couple of times. You think? I think
this judge is going to make it happen in August. The only way it won't happen is if there's like a plea that the family and everybody accepts.
Yeah.
So that they don't have to see the gruesome photos at trial. I mean, I can't imagine being a parent looking at that stuff. That would just be a freaking nightmare. I think.
Yeah. I could.
You know?
Yeah. I feel so horrible for the family members that are going or that have to go through this and relive everything again. It's insane.
You know, you ever follow the Delphi case at all?
I did follow the Delphi case.
Yeah. So like the Richard Allen guy, I mean, we've just seen him. They just came out. He absolutely confessed, like, God, I don't know, 7 or 8 times, really clearly, you know, convincing on the phone calls with his wife, etc. And he really wanted to confess. He wrote a thing up to the warden to confess, but somehow it doesn't count or something. And the attorneys came in and convinced the wife and everybody to keep saying, no, you're good. And they basically forced the trial so that I actually believe it's for their own publicity. that they didn't believe. There's no way you would believe this guy is innocent if you heard how he says it. It is literally, I did it. I just want you to know that I did it. But I just want to make sure that you'll still love me, even if you know that I did it. And they go, we do love you, but you didn't do it. He goes, but I did. I mean, that's what it sounds like. I mean,
the crazy thing too is he also, after he first says it to his wife, he's like, well, now I'm going to go lose my mind or something to that nature. And which is what he ends up doing. I put that in quotations as well.
Exactly.
I don't think that's how it works. Like, hey, all right, I'm going to go crazy. And then that happens. He even, I think at one point, because I caught a little bit of it. In fact, that's what I was watching and listening earlier before we jumped on. And
that's pretty amazing.
There was a part where he says, I think he's telling his mom that he did it, and his mom says something to the effect like, they're messing with him. He's like, no, they're not. Right.
He even admitted that. That was amazing, right?
I was like, geez, there you go, guys. It's and
I think the last one was the most, because the phone rings and he goes, hi, or she says hello, and he goes, I did it. I mean, right, the first thing out of his mouth, because he's just been stewing on it and he wanted to say it again. That's just amazing to me. Anyway, what were you going to say? I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought it was pretty obvious that it was him. I didn't get into the Delphi case until he got arrested. That's around the time that we started the channel, was right around he got arrested. So, I probably would have been suspicious of Ron Logan and a bunch of the other guys that everybody was looking at. But, I wish they would have released that 43-second tape a long time ago. I feel like had they done that, I think a lot of people would have been able to tell, one, the guy that's on the bridge is really short. I mean, you can.
Yeah, I actually did it. Again, using ChatGPT, it actually allows you to measure. In Photoshop, you can put a pin here, and it was finally, out of all these years, I've been waiting to have the right rail in the shot, because that's the key. Because I had a friend go out there. The rail to rail is 6'8".
Yeah.
The rail heights are 4 inches, but once you know it's 6'8", and then you have him in the shot. If you then you have to kind of slide up the sides, because it kind of goes in, because it goes farther away. But if you find the right railroad tie these on and you measure across, maybe you get like 700 pixels. And then you measure his height, and maybe it's like 480. And then it does all this math, and I got him at 5'3" to 5'5" every single time. I did it like a million times, and then I even did it for Abby too. Who is right in front of him, and it got within like 5'5", 6 or something, really close to her height. So I don't know. I thought it was pretty amazing. I totally agree that video, at least for the amateur sleuths or whatever we call ourselves out there, we could figure out how tall he was. Basically, you can just even lay him down, and you can see these. Not, if he was 6 foot tall, there'd be 8 inches from his head to the side rail.
Yeah.
But even if you just rotate him, he's way further away than that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's some clues there just on the video. I mean, the bottom of his pants are folded upwards. You can see the lighter color on the bottom part. You can see that there's a brown shirt that he's wearing underneath his sweater that extends outside of the sweater.
Yeah.
The arms are really scrunched up. The jacket, those aren't all indicators of somebody who's tall. Those are all indicators of somebody who's short. And so
his voice sounds the same. What do you think of the voice? I mean, you listen to him sounding there, and you think it got down the hill. I mean, my God, it's the same.
Yeah, when he starts to calm down, like I think once he's said it a couple of times, and he's just like, I think he's like, yeah, I did it, whatever. When he's not excited, it sounds just like him. I mean, to me,
exactly.
Yeah. There's some times where I think people were looking at maybe perhaps where he's a little bit, upset and yelling, but that wasn't the tone that he used on the video. It was different. And so when he's using the same tone and the same voice and projecting the same type of voice, it sounds exactly the same.
Right. When I talk like this, hey, everybody, look at this. Everybody went, well, if I walk down the street, it's a little different, totally different, like a lower pitch when you're calm. It's interesting that he was that calm, knowing that what he was going to do, what he's going to be doing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it just shows he's kind of a psycho. I mean,
Yeah, he's in. That one's interesting. I don't know if that's his first time. I know they were looking at him. There was an elderly couple that had passed away, and they were looking at him at one point. I don't think they're looking at him anymore.
Right.
But
I think it was his first time. I actually feel like he had remorse after I think when he killed Libby, he was angry, but he was going to allow Abby to live, and that's why it was dressed. He used his gun the whole time. Like they go, how did he redress him? He didn't redress him. He allowed Abby to redress herself with the available clothing that was sitting there, and we know that because her arms were like this, tucked inside. You know when you have a sweatshirt on and you grab the end? Women do that a lot.
Yeah.
They grab the end of it. That's what she was doing. She was like this on the ground, like that. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, that means she was alive when she grabbed that. And I think he was going to let her live, but then his selfishness that he described, where he thought of his own life because she could identify him over hers, and then he ended up killing her at the end. But I think that's something that bothered him a little bit.
Yeah. Now
I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense that way. You know, those that believe he's innocent, though, will say that there's not a lot of blood on her clothes that she's wearing in that image.
Mm-hmm. It's underneath, like right underneath her neck, though, on the ground.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I've never seen the underside or anything like that. I've seen some pictures. There were some pictures that were circulating that ended up finding their way on, to my channel as well. I didn't display them or anything like that, but I had seen them, and it's just unfortunate.
Well, thanks for not doing that, putting that there. They weren't ever supposed to be out there. It's just kind of. I think the defense team in that case just did some really disturbing things. I mean, I guess if you're the client, you're going to like having somebody throw everything at it. But when it got to trial, they didn't do a damn thing. It was like a blowout. I mean, they didn't have any arguments or any,
Yeah.
Pretty weird to do all that effort to try to sell Odinist theories and all this, and it wasn't allowed. In the trial, they had no backup plan or anything. It was just day after day of, confessions after confessions and different things. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to win any appeals. I think he's going to stay right where he is at and where he belongs. Well, great. I want to say thank you so much for jumping on, guys. His channel is linked, I believe, in the description. I tried to. There's a lot of, I don't know, I'm sure it's the trolls, but there's a lot of different. It was hard to tag your.
There's troll channels that make fake ones.
Yeah, exactly. So it made it a little difficult. So make sure you guys go out there and just all you guys got to do is just put Gray Hughes, and then you'll see his channel here, Gray Hughes Investigates. Sub up, send them out, let them know that you guys came from the Drunk Turkey Show. Thank you, Gray, for joining us. It was a great time having you. I hope
that was fun.
Again.
Oh yeah, we definitely have to do it again. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I have a check mark next to my name too. So if you see one of the ones that don't have that, then screw it. Anyways, that was really cool, and you had a lot of really interesting insight into little things I hadn't even thought about. So very cool.
Thank you. It was fun. Cool. It was a good conversation. We'll do this again, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. I'm going to have Dr. Vona back on Friday night. We're going to talk about this hearing that happens tomorrow, and I think also the 10th. And so I'll also be going live tomorrow on the 10th talking about it, probably after the hearing. So make sure you like and subscribe. Go follow Gray. Until next time, guys, we'll see y'all later. Peace.